Forget the $300 multi-tool. The World War II pocket system, well, it made modern survival gear obsolete. The deadliest survival tool of World War II didn't look deadly at all. No polished titanium, no 20-function gimmicks, no marketing department. It was small, plain, often ugly, and, it kept men alive when everything else failed. Long before survival became a consumer hobby, soldiers learned a brutal truth the hard way. When chaos hits, the only tools that matter are the ones already in your pocket and already mastered. This isn't nostalgia. This is operational reality. And once you understand it, your view of modern survival gear is going to crack wide open. Survival in World War II came down to what you could reach without thinking. Combat in World War II had no patience for ideal conditions. Normandy hedgerows swallowed men and equipment whole. The Ardennes froze machinery solid. North Africa baked grease into dust. The Pacific rotted gear from the inside out. Packs were lost. Vehicles burned. Airdrops missed. Plans collapsed. When that happened, survival stopped being about loadouts and became about immediacy. What really mattered was what stayed on your body when, everything else was gone. Pockets weren't just storage, they were life insurance. Anything carried there had to earn its place through necessity alone. Weight was always scrutinized. Complexity was, honestly, punished. Failure meant injury, or even death. That kind of pressure, it forged what we now call the pocket core. Not a kit, not a system you unpack, a core. The irreducible minimum of capability a man could rely on when stripped down to nothing else. World War II soldiers rejected gadgetry before gadget culture even existed. Forget the modern myth of soldiers bristling with clever gear. The reality was, in fact, ruthless efficiency. Infantrymen and paratroopers across nations. They all converged on the same conclusion without ever meeting each other. Simple tools survive. Complicated ones don't. A knife was, nearly universal. Not some fantasy combat blade, but a working edge. Folding or fixed, it didn't matter as long as it cut. Rope, rations, wood, canvas, bandages. The knife wasn't precious, you see. It was sharpened often, abused daily, and replaced when needed. It was a consumable tool, not a talisman. Alongside it sat something even less glamorous, a screwdriver. Sometimes stand-alone, sometimes improvised, sometimes built into another piece of gear. This wasn't convenience, not at all. It was mechanical survival. Rifles needed adjustment. Crates needed opening. Wire needed twisting. Metal needed scraping. A screwdriver was torque, leverage, wedge, chisel, and pry bar all in one, These tools show up again and again across armies because, the problem set was universal. They worked with numb fingers. They functioned when filthy. They tolerated impact and misuse. Anything delicate was erased by reality itself. Complexity failed. Simplicity endured. World War II taught a lesson modern survival culture keeps, forgetting. Complexity is a liability. Every hinge is a failure point. Every nested tool is another thing that can jam, snap, or, well, vanish when you need it most. Original pocket tools from the era tell this story clearly. Corners worn smooth, tips thickened through redesign. Steel chosen for toughness over, elegance. Engineers didn't ask how many features a tool could have. They asked how it failed last time and removed that weakness. Now compare that philosophy to modern multi-tools. Tiny scissors, miniature saws, needle-nose pliers folded inside a dozen mechanisms. They look impressive on a table. Under stress, though, they demand fine motor skills you no longer have. Cold hands, wet gloves, low light, adrenaline. During the Second World War, soldiers really didn't trust tools that required, finesse. They placed their trust in tools that could tolerate a fair amount of abuse. The pocket core was, a system, not just a single object. Now, here's where I think modern survival thinking goes a bit wrong. We tend to chase after one tool that does, everything. But soldiers back then didn't do that. They built redundancy through separation. A blade did blade work. A screwdriver did torque work. Sometimes pliers were added for gripping and cutting wire. Each tool was independent. If one failed, the others still worked. No cascading failure. No single point of mechanical betrayal. A broken blade didn't take your screwdriver with it. A bent screwdriver didn't cripple your knife. Damage was survivable because the system wasn't dependent on internal complexity. That separation wasn't accidental. It was learned through, failure, injury, and even death. And, it's the purest expression of the pocket core principle. The real weapon was familiarity, not metal. Here's the part most people miss. The tools didn't make soldiers resourceful. Their familiarity with tools did. Many World War II soldiers came from trades: farmers, mechanics, carpenters. They understood leverage, grain, tension, and material failure intuitively. A screwdriver wasn't just a screwdriver. It was a lever, a wedge, a scoring tool, and a punch. That competence didn't come from owning gear. It came from using it daily, fixing things instead of replacing them, making do instead of upgrading. That mindset is the real inheritance of World War II. So, how do you actually apply the World War II pocket core today without, turning it into cosplay? This isn't about reenactment or collecting militaria. It's really about intelligent adaptation, taking what worked back then and making it useful for modern life. All right, let's start by stripping your everyday carry down to tools that mirror soldier logic. First up, you'll want a robust folding knife. Look for one with a locking mechanism, a blade that's about 3 to 4 inches long, and, a thick spine. No gimmicks here, no serration circus, just the basics, simple and effective. Now, this is your primary interface with the physical world. Next, carry a separate flathead screwdriver. Not a bit, and definitely not a fold-out. You want a solid piece of steel, something you can pry with, something that lets you apply real torque without worrying about snapping a hinge. That's the kind of reliability you're after. This single tool replaces an absurd number of fragile modern accessories. If you expand beyond that, add compact pliers with a real wire cutter. Not micro-sized. Something you can grip with gloves. This echoes the fencing and mechanical tools soldiers relied on constantly. Notice what's missing. No bottle openers, no 20-function compromises, just tools that do real work. Turn simple tools into force multipliers through practice. Carrying the pocket core is meaningless without competence. Soldiers didn't just carry tools, they lived with them. You can build the same capability today. Use your knife to make feather sticks, shape wood, cut cordage cleanly and repeatedly. Take your screwdriver and disassemble equipment you rely on. Tighten loose hardware. Scrape corrosion. Pry stubborn materials. Practice fixing instead of replacing. Learn how much force steel tolerates before it bends. Learn how materials fail. So that's how a simple pocket core becomes, well, a survival multiplier instead of just a fashion statement. Preparedness, you see, is about needing less, not owning more. The greatest lesson of the World War II pocket core isn't actually historical, it's psychological. Preparedness isn't about accumulation, it's really about prioritization. It's seeing options instead of obstacles. One tool, 5 solutions. That's how men survived, you know, when resupply failed and plans just collapsed. Modern gear culture, well, it sells comfort through consumption. But, you know, World War II soldiers survived through discipline and restraint. Audit your pockets. Audit your kits. Ask hard questions. Does this tool exist because it works or because it just looks clever? Would it function after a week in mud? Would you trust it with shaking hands and failing light? Carry fewer things. Know them better. That's the pocket core. If this kind of no-nonsense historical truth is why you're here, subscribe to Old World Prep. Share this with someone who values substance over spectacle. History isn't meant to sit on a shelf. It's meant to sharpen how we think, how we prepare, and, well, how we survive.